your possessions, the things that are wealthy to you, the things that mean something to you, if you keep those things on earth, it's a bad investment. Why is it a bad investment? Because those things can be affected, can be taken away by literal moths. Literal rust can destroy these things. Thieves can break in and steal, right? Our check can dwindle very quickly, right? Because of the things that are that affect it. Some of you have lived through several recessions in your life. And you realize the day after that portfolio dropped from a certain amount to what was a very much more meager amount, you realized how quickly your money can be taken away. You realized how fragile even the surest investments on earth can be. Right? When we invest our money, our time, our heart into the things of this earth, it is a poor investment. But here's the investment opportunity that Jesus wants to lay before us all this morning. Lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. Say, guess what? If you put your time, your energy, your effort, your money into investing in the heavenly realm, that is a sure investment that lasts forever. Now, I know what we're thinking right now. What does this look like, Andrew? That's great, right? Everything that you're saying is great. But how do I invest in the heavenly realm? There's not a bank of heaven that I can go to and deposit all my money into and say, okay, now I'm going to put, my money is in a secure a bank, right? There's not a place that we can go and we can buy a bunch of heavenly garments and a bunch of robes that we're going to wear one day, right? And then God can just keep them safe and like as he's preparing that place, you know, that he said he was going to go and prepare. Just make sure there's plenty of dressers, right, that can hold all the shoes and stuff that I buy. No, there's not a store where you can go and buy this stuff, right? There's not a place that you can go and purchase a CD of heaven. Right? You can't invest in the stock market of heaven. So how does this look practically? What is Jesus trying to get at here? Well, the point of what Jesus is trying to say is, first of all, you have to have it in your heart. The first thing that you have to do is it affects your heart, because the very next line that he says, where your treasure is, that's where your heart will be also. So it's about the heart. It's about what is in our, what are we, where are our affections? Where do our affections lie? What do we care about? What do we love? And when our heart is affected, we're not going to go, we're not going to the store to buy all this stuff in heaven. What we're going to do in the way we invest in the kingdom of God, in the way we invest in this heavenly realm, is we do the things that Jesus called us to do by loving our neighbor, by caring about the things that are happening in our church, by caring about the things that the gospel is going forth. You know where you invest your money? You invest your money in things that last, in the things that are eternal. And what does that look like? Well, it looks like instead of using our money to just go out to eat and yell at the waitress, we use our money to go out to eat and to witness and love the waitress or waiter. What it looks like when our treasure is in heaven is, instead of trying to spend all of our time figuring out what's the next best stock market thing that we can invest in, we use our time and our energy to see what ministries are doing good work, that are saving souls, that are seeing people come to Jesus, that are seeing people grow in their faith, and we invest in that instead. That's what it looks like to have our affections, our all of our love, our heart, and treasure in heaven. See, we can spend a lot of time trying to invest our money and trying to make sure we make more money. Listen, I did it. That was my whole life at Cookout. It was about how much money can I make? How much money is in the bank account? How can I make more? And really, the way that the corporate world works is, if I had a better bottom line at the end of the year, I made more money. And so what did that make me do? It made me a mean, miserly person. You know the nice person that you see on Sunday mornings that talks to you? And that wasn't me during the cookout years. In fact, I would tell people, you need to make sure you're on time. No, you are going to pay for that food that you dropped on the ground. I was a mean person. Why? Because it affected what was going into my bank account. And here's the thing. When we care more about money, we're going to do anything in our mind and our heart to get it. Whether it's exploiting poor people or whether it's doing underhanded dealings, we're going to do whatever it takes. And so the question that we have to ask ourselves is, where is our heart this morning? Because worship, we have a choice of where our worship is going to go. If our worship is going to go towards the thing that's in our heart is money, we can change that to worshiping ultimately God. See, the thing is, the worship does not just affect our heart. Jesus says that it affects other parts. Look with me at verse 22. It says, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? Now here's the thing this morning. Our worship affects our heart. And that's where it starts. It starts in the heart. But then it goes to a different place. Right? Whatever has our affection, whatever has our love, right? If it's money, if it's material things, if it's whatever it is, right? Or if it's God, that's going to begin in the heart. But then it's going to start to affect other things. And what he's saying here is it's going to then affect your mind. The eye here, the Greek word is the word that we get our word ophthalmology from, right? An ophthalmologist is someone who looks at your eyes. You go to them if you need to get your cataracts taken off, right? You go to an ophthalmologist if you need glasses, right? That's where you go, because those are the ones that deal with your eye. But this word has multiple meanings in the Greek. It's not just the eye, the physical eye. It can also be like the eye of your mind, like this idea of, the all-seeing eye, right? And that came from somewhere, a third eye, right? It's the eye of your mind. It's the same thing. It's from Greek thought, Greek philosophy, that the eye can also be your mind. So what we have here is Jesus is not just saying, just in the middle of a sermon, he's not just giving an illustration about an eye. He's not just giving us a science lesson about eyes. Because we understand this is logical. What he's saying here is logical. The eye is the lamp of the body, right? If your eye is healthy, physical eye, if you can see, then you have light. You can see things. You can walk around and you don't bump into things. But if your eye is dark, right, if your eye is bad, verse 23, physical eye, then you're full of darkness and you can't see anything and you're constantly bumping into stuff. He's not just now all of a sudden giving an anatomy lesson about eyes. No, this is directly related to what comes before it. Don't lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where your heart is, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. And what comes right after this, no one can serve God and money. And so the eye here has the idea of your mind. And so our worship affects not only our heart, it starts in the heart, but then it starts to affect our mind. It starts to affect our plan, the way that we live our life, the way that we're planning our life. Some of us, we are in financial planning. Right? And when we get into financial planning, what we do is we help people invest their money wisely and smartly. We have a plan of how that works, right? And so when someone comes to us, they want a plan. And so here's the thing: when our heart starts to worship whatever it is, it gets a plan on how it's going to worship that thing. And if our eye, it says, is healthy, and that is singular in focus, that is actually the idea here is also generous. If our generosity is broken, then we are going to have a plan that leads us to darkness. But if our generosity is healthy, Jesus says, then we're going to have a plan that leads us to light. Here's the deal this morning. When I started to be affected by my heart, that my heart then was affected towards money, and I wanted to worship and follow after money, I started to have a plan that was very different than the plan I had when I was worshiping and following after God. What it looked like was, instead of, let me try to find a position in a church, let me try to preach the word of God, let me try to share the good news, let me be generous, it became, how can I scrimp and save? How can I rise up the ladder by pushing everybody else down to get to the top of the pile so that I can have more and more money? Can I tell you this morning, many of us who serve and love money, we are really miserable. Some of you in here this morning are miserable because you are letting your life be all about what is in your bank account, what kind of clothes you wear, whether you have the nice shoes, whether you have the right jewelry, or whether you have the big house, the car, whatever it is. Some of us in here are miserable because that is what our life is completely about. You want to know something this morning? People who worship money are always miserable. You want to know why I believe that? Because I can look around and see it, but because I lived it. You want to know the most miserable year of my life? It wasn't the year that I almost lost my wife and kid. It wasn't the years that I struggled financially as I was trying to serve God. It wasn't the years where I lost my grandmother and someone who was, in my mind, a saint in my life, a rock for me. You want to know the most miserable year of my life? It was the year that I worked at Cookout. Because I didn't see my family almost at all because I was constantly working long days. I was working 90 to 100 hours a week. And you know what that did for me? If you're a GM and you're making money, if someone else is not on the clock, right, then I'm making that money because my bottom line is affected by that. And that year was a miserable year because my plan was to make more money. But guess what? It was never enough. It was never enough. When I wanted more. When I got more, I wanted more. And it never satiated my life. It never fully affected who and so my plan literally was a plan that had no hope. And I came to a place in my life where my heart was towards money. My plans of my life were affected by money, but that's not all that was affected. What was finally affected was how I was living my life. What I did with my heart, what I did with my head, affected my hands. Look at verse 24. No one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Now, this word serve here has to do with physical serving. It's not just this idea of like this ethereal, like I'm serving something, right? Or that's serving, right? As the kids would say right now. We're not going to get into that. But you can ask your grandkids later, right? What that serves. Okay, anyway. No, it's the idea of serving, like the idea of a slave or a servant that serves, physically serves. With their hands. You see, my heart was affected when I was worshiping money. My plans all changed to make more money, and it affected how I was with my family. It affected how I was with people around me, what I did. During that year, my mom, if she watches, she's going to laugh because they still tell this story. So there was a time during that year where I was working a ton, and I got up from a night shift. I'd gotten off at Cookout closes, if you didn't know, on the weekends at 4 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know if you knew that, but you get out when you close at 4. That means you're cleaning up and you're not home till 5. Not done till 5:30. And then I had an hour drive home, so I didn't get home till 6:30. And I had to do a flip around because I was going to work a day shift. I had one day off, and then I was working a day shift the very next day. And so I woke up, and I was groggy about 12 o'clock. And my mom had the day off for some reason, and she was in. And we were having some work done. I was living with my parents at the time, and we were having some work done, of course, to save money, right? All of it was about money, okay? So I was living with my parents at the time, right? All of us love our moms. So I walked up the stairs. I was in the basement. I walked up the stairs.